what you're doing is, one, you're controlling it, right? Because if someone says, do you have XYZ for sale? And some user says, no, they don't have it, or they used to have it in stock, but they don't have it, and it's wrong information, how many clients or customers did you just lose because they just took for granted that that thing was right?
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the High Level Spotlight Sessions, where we showcase awesome marketers doing awesome marketing. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Gilbert. He is the creator of Local Falcon, which you may have heard of if you're in the SEO world. And he's currently the product officer at DBAplatform, which is a Google My Business tool that is deemed as mission control for local search. Yan, thanks so much for coming on.
Hi, Chase. I just wanted one correction, is Gilbert, because I'm French.
Oh, my bad.
My last name.
That sounds way cooler.
Yeah, no problem. We didn't go.
So Yan, take me back. First of all, what is Local Falcon? Oh, it sounds like we have a little bit of a delay, but what is Local Falcon and how did you get started with that?
So Local Falcon is a rank tracking tool for Google Maps. And basically I'm a SEO and I was just doing my job, my task. And the hardest thing that I couldn't figure out was they kept saying, well, ranking on maps is highly based on proximity, right? So you're looking for a pizza place, Google's going to return one near you and not 10 miles away across town. So the rankings are highly based on proximity, but all the ranking tools out there previously at that time, they were just checking one spot on a zip code or near at the business address. And you couldn't get any reading on, well, now I'm checking my rankings. I'm ranking first at the location of the business, but if I go 2 blocks away, a mile away, what am I ranking? And so you would have to put in different zip codes and try to figure out, in your mind, so this isn't right. So you can't do that. So I basically built a tool to be able to visualize this for me. And so basically it centers you at whatever location you want, usually at the business address. And then it just drops pins simulating if someone is half a mile away, north, south, east, west, and it drops a whole bunch of pins and checks the rankings from each one of those places. And it generates a grid, and maybe you've seen it has different colors. And so I originated that, and it checks up to spot 20, and we have green to red, and it makes a nice little visual image. It's super, super easy to get an idea if your coverage area, I call it, is strong or weak, because you could, a lot of business owners, I check at home. It's different than when I check at work, and at work I'm ranking first. And so what do I, what's going on, right? So This tells you where you're ranking well, where you're not ranking well, and now we've developed it a lot further, pairing up with DBA, and now it checks all your competitors and records all the data and does graphs over time. It's really an awesome tool for rank tracking, but it's also really good for checking for leads too. You can use it in all sorts of ways because there's just so much data there, and it's just visualized so easily.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating report to run because it gives you a much more complete picture, right? And it opens up all sorts of opportunities and insights, especially when you're able to see your competitors and how they rank and how that sort of overlaps with your geographic area and where you want to be ranking. It's pretty fascinating. I can't imagine it was an easy thing to build, because I'd imagine you're simulating servers all over the place, or I don't know how it works, but it's pretty cool. Let's talk in general about Google. We're super excited to be going deep with Google integrations this year. We just integrated Google My Business Chat into HighLevel. So those chats will come into the conversation stream along with SMSs and emails and Facebook messages, et cetera. And we've been really excited about how, and kind of amazed at how enthusiastic Google is about pushing things like Google My Business Chat this year and their sort of lead ads, if you want to call them that. And so they seem, from what we've heard on the calls, on a warpath to really take Google My Business to another level. Can you talk about it as, from an SEO perspective, the importance of Google My Business right now?
Yeah, so I mean, in general, Google wants to insert itself in between any transaction, right? So it's built out Google My Business, and it's trying to get as much information as possible. But now that it has all that, and people are used to using it and putting reviews and people checking it, and going to Google Maps just for basically any, I mean, no one goes to other sites at this point for check for local businesses. Now they've allowed for products to like integrate into Google My Business. And so DBA has like we can feed products, and you have an inventory system, and now it's pushing through GMB. And so the goal is to compete with Amazon on that level, to really insert itself in between the user or the customer and the business. So right now it's free because Google wants everyone to get on board, but probably in a few years, they'll probably start taking commission. But again, it's just about, Google's about information. And then once it gets that information, it starts to control that information, right? So that's why it's expanding everywhere. Google tries a lot of things. A lot of them fail, but a lot of them will work, right? If you try enough things. They have the money to be able to test out all the different areas. Oh, that one doesn't work, shut it down. Oh, this one's working, expand it. So that's why Google, because they know most of the searches for local are going to create a transaction of some kind, right? So that's why they want to get in that space.
So let's talk about that. I think it's really right. If you're a marketer and you don't come from an SEO background, right? You do lead gen, you focus on running ads, things like that. SEO is very, or at least historically, was very intimidating, right? And it's like, well, I know my client would benefit from SEO. They probably would say yes if I pitched it to them, but I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to build links. I don't know any of the technical side of, code and schema and all these types of things. So I'm just kind of shy away from it. Well, now I feel like SEO is sort of, you can look at it as is in two different ways. There's like SEO, maybe you're an e-com site, like, yeah, that's going to be a big project. But if you're a local business, local SEO is almost its own separate thing. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you can get pretty far just by becoming a Google My Business Pro.
So I would say about half of the ranking power for a local listing comes from the GMB itself. So a lot of it still comes from the website. So if we're talking about like the organic algorithm, the algorithms are split, right? So there's an organic algorithm and there's a maps algorithm. The maps algorithm is more sophisticated. Basically, it builds off of the organic, plus it adds the local component. But the GMB itself has tons of fields, right? It has your appointment, your website, your reviews. It has FAQ things in there. There's a lot of information to fill out in the GMB itself. So to optimize, your business name and the categories and your description and the products, and there's a lot of work you could do. And it's pretty simple because all the fields are there. You just fill them in. And so, yeah, what you're saying is somewhat true in that sense. Is if you optimizing the GMB listing, you've done a large part of the work. Now your associated website is also still very important, not only for the organic, but for the maps ranking. So you still have to have the traditional SEO of backlinks to the website and content on the website and site structure and all that stuff. That's still very important. And when you get into very competitive categories, you still really need a robust website. But for many categories, filling out the GMB and posting and making sure you get reviews is a really good first step that a lot of people don't even do yet. Oh. Yeah.
Sorry about that. Exactly. And I feel like it's something, it's like low-hanging fruit. No one would say it's a bad idea to optimize your Google My Business and to be posting frequently and things like that, right? So I feel like it's a service that you could easily add into your offerings without having to say like, yeah, we're SEO experts and we're going to charge you for some robust SEO package. It's a service that it's like, this is a necessity. You have to have this done. We can take care of this for you. And I think DMB makes it really, or DBA, sorry, platform makes it really easy. Like there's a section on the website that I love it. It's like, good news, it's simple to win the local game. And then you have about, 10 things listed there. And it's like, all you have to do are all these things. Now, that in itself is kind of challenging when you're trying to do that for multiple clients. So tell me a little bit about how DBAplatform helps you scale those efforts.
Yeah, so that's the biggest problem with Google My Business is that it's, if you have a handful of listings, it's okay to manage. It's not too hard. You can post, you can check your reviews and all that stuff. But once you have a large amount, let's say over 10 of the same business, if it's a chain, for example, then you want to be more efficient. And that's where DBA comes in, where it'll connect through the API. And basically, if you have a post or a coupon or an event, and you want to send that information out to all the GMBs at once, instead of logging into each one individually and copy, paste, right? You just do it once, send it out through the connection, boom, all your listings have it. So it could be 5, it could be, 2,000. That doesn't make a difference. So if you have a large amount that need that same push of information, it'll do that. Also, when you have a lot of listings, people are always making user edits, right? You could use suggested edit and make edits, and sometimes they're malicious, sometimes they're not. And so DBA will basically lock your listing. And so if there is a change, it'll just reset every 24 hours so that people don't change your category, because that would be, sometimes a category gets changed and it's drastic. Your ranking just tank because that's a large driver of the rankings in GMB. So it has a maintenance factor of just making sure. The reviews and FAQ, if you have reviews, you have to check each listing. And so if you aggregate it all in one spot, here's reviews from all different listings, you can respond, individually or all together. Same thing with the FAQ section. So it helps keep a data integrity for all your listings because of all the user generated. And sometimes the algorithm will even make suggested changes too. So you want to, it really makes it efficient for managing, for data, integrity factors, creating posts and uploading images. It's an efficiency thing. And that information, when you create posts and images, helps ranking. So you want to do that. Google says do a post every week, right? So that's what we recommend, is to do a post every week. But do a post for 100 listings every week. That's insane. But with DBA, you create it once and you push it out to all 100. It's really saves so much time. And so when you're a larger agency, you can manage a lot more. And we have a service. And if people don't want to do that, we have a service.
You'll actually do it for them.
Yeah,
huh?
Yeah, we could do it. One of the hardest things I find that agencies struggle with is they don't have enough content from their clients, right? To post an image or to put a post. Like they need that information. And so sometimes you have to use stock images which isn't ideal, but that's the hardest part really is to get the information from the client.
Talk to me a little bit more about FAQs. So if I go optimize my clients' FAQs in Google My Business, are those the answers that you see sometimes? Like if you were to search, does this restaurant offer gluten-free, or a specific piece of information about a business, they'll actually return it right at the top of the results. So you don't even need to go into the website. Is that where they're going? Is that how FAQs are being used?
Yeah, so it's another way for Google to insert itself so that you don't have to go to the website, right? So the content is getting built out right on the GMB, knowledge panel on the listing there. And you want, as the owner, you want to control that, and you can control it, right? You can log in, you're allowed to, and this is where a lot of business owners don't realize, you're allowed to ask a question and answer it as the business owner. And so you kind of want, if you have an FAQ page on your website, you want to grab that information and put it there. Or if you don't have that on your website yet, what you want to do is take your most frequently asked what people call on the phone, or you open this day, blah, blah, blah. You write down all that stuff and you put it on your listing, because what you're doing is, one, you're controlling it, right? Because if someone says, do you have XYZ for sale? and some user says, no, they don't have it, or they used to have it in stock, but they don't have it, and it's wrong information, how many clients or customers did you just lose because they just took for granted that that thing was right, because the owner never wrote back, never answered properly? So as the owner, take your, your major questions that you hear all the time, put them there, ask the question, answer it. It'll say answered by owner. So now there's some authority behind it, and then you can upvote it so that it comes higher. And that way, if I'm reading it as a user and I see answered by owner, well, I'm going to take that information a lot more, to be the right answer, as opposed to if there's 5 other user generated answers from I don't know who, right? So you want to be able to control that information. And if you have those questions, you really pay attention to your customers and what they're asking, and they land on your knowledge panel, now they don't have to pick up the phone to call you, which is an extra work that they have to do. It's already there. It's like you've predicted what they were going to ask. It's like, oh, I was going to ask that exact question. Now I don't have to call. I know that they have it, or they know they're open or closed. And so it creates a much better user experience. And you're much more likely to get that client or customer because you've preempted their thoughts.
I mean, now you've got my wheels spinning. It would be so easy to just build that into your onboarding process. Like, what are the 5 or 10 most frequent questions your business gets, and just go fill it in for them. I mean, I think that's an easy win. Again, it's super low hanging fruit that you could do for any business without having to be an SEO expert.
Right. And right now it shows up in the knowledge panel right now, but Google's always changing where things show up. So on maps, it might show up somewhere. So if a field right now in GMB is not very prominent, it doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. So fill it out as much as you can. And 2 months down the line, Google might feel like pushing it up. And then boom, now you're ahead of the game because you don't have to scramble. Like, oh my gosh, now FAQs like in front of everybody. We don't have them ready. Call the client, 2 months later, you get the answers back. Now do it ahead of time, and then you're ahead of your competition. Yeah,
that makes a ton of sense. So Ian, the website's DBAplatform.com, right? If people are interested in an easier way to manage Google My Business listings at scale, do you guys have a free trial over there? I think I saw that you can sign up.
Yeah, there's some free services within there, but really to create posts and send images, it's $1 per listing. I mean, it's really inexpensive. And so if you just want to try for $1 to see how it is, it's not free, but for $1 you can, it's basically free. You can test it out and then import more listings later on.
Nice. That's great. So Ian, thanks so much for coming on and chatting with me.
Super. Yeah, it's been nice.
All right, DBAplatform.com. That's the website if you're interested. Thanks for watching. We will see you in the next one.